Hey, what is up guys, and welcome back once again. Today we're finally going to be checking out the entire Boxcar town, which should be pretty cool considering it is our first full town walkthrough. And by the way, if you see a certain build that you want to get a closer look at, I do have separate videos that will give you a much more in-depth view, so feel free to check those out because today we're going to be taking a more simple, general overview type of look at the town. That being said, hopefully you guys enjoy how the town turned out. And without further ado, let's go ahead and take a closer look. So really quick before we head down and check out the town in full force, I was thinking about showing you guys how the boxcars actually got down there. So you'll see the town is at the bottom of this hill, and up here is the railroad. And what's cool about this is it actually has a few boxcars up here that are sort of toppled over. So I figured the Wastelanders either just pushed these things down, or maybe they slid down on their own over time, considering it has been 200 years. Oh, and by the way guys, for those wondering, this town is at the settlement called Egret Tours Marina, just in case some of you were wondering. But anyways, today we're going to be checking out the town at nighttime. Just because the way I see it, the lights tend to stand out a bit better, and it also gives a much cooler atmosphere to some of our back alley areas. Before we even enter the town though, you'll see we have a pretty big lit up sign, and some of you may recognize this from a little trailer estate north of here. But as for this town, I just thought it kind of fit the whole theme I was going for, and I feel like these boxcar buildings are very similar to something like a trailer home. So moving further ahead, we'll check out the first two buildings really quick, or at least this one here on the left, and then we'll go ahead and check out our first back alley. So starting off, we do have the Boxtown Bar, and this was actually the very first building we ever made in this town. And in this case, it's got a pretty cool deck with at least a little bit of seating. Nothing too crazy, but it is still here. And then this more narrow section is the bar, which once again, nothing absurd, but I think the simple look is really what fits this place best. And just for the sake of showing you guys as much as possible, I'll try and give you a quick look at not only the outside of the build, but also the interiors as well. And by the way, for any of you new to the Boxcar series, the reason for some of these buildings having beds inside of them, even though they aren't necessarily homes, is because I figured the owner might prefer to just stay in their own store rather than rent a room in the hotel, just so they can kind of have all their belongings in one place. So once again, that was our Boxtown Bar. This here is the pharmacy, or doc in a box if you will, because it both sells chems and also patches patients up as well. So it's sort of a two-in-one. But this here is our first back alley area. And for sections like these, you'll see I've tried to add as much as possible, just so these areas in between don't look so boring. But moving on, this is sort of our most vibrant back alley area. And compared to the others, it is quite a bit more secluded, so I think that's really what makes it stand out compared to all those. And one minor change from what you may have seen before back here is indeed the doghouse. I figured since this is in a very dark back alley, it may be a smart idea to have some kind of a guard dog, just to add to that extra security. But moving up here, you'll see we have a little clothing shop, and also the Barber Shop. And to me, these were just quick, easy, fun builds to make, and I think they really do have a unique look compared to the rest of the town. Oh, and I should probably mention that both the clothing store and the barber shop are co-owned by the same person, so whoever owns one of them is also going to manage the other as well. But this section to the right is where you would get your hair cut. And then over on the left-hand side, this is more so where you would buy all your clothing. Although, that would be done on the other side of the counter, just so no one tries to steal anything. Next up, we'll go ahead and check out the pharmacy. And as for the deck on this one, I wouldn't say it's as detailed as a build like the bar, but I'd say it was still enough in the end to achieve that look I was going for. And most likely my favorite part of this build, at least the outside of it, would definitely have to be the counter, just because it's got all those chems thrown out on it, which I think gives it that classic Fallout look. Now, like I said, this build is somewhat of a 2-in-1, so if we come around here to our second sort of back alley area, this is where any of the patients would enter. And I think you guys said it best. This almost looks more so like a place where you might catch a disease than get cured for one. But I think this is definitely one of our most detailed builds in the entire town. And there really is quite a lot to it. You have the surgery area, the owner's office, and also somewhat of a chem lab in the back as well. Next up, as you'll see, we have the general goods store on the right hand side, and then the diner is over on the left. Now, just for the sake of kind of going through this pretty smoothly, I'd say we should probably check this one out first, just because the entrance to this building is also in the same area that the pharmacy's entrance was. But as you'll see, out here is a decent amount of stuff on display, and I think I can honestly say that now that everything's really finished up, this is easily one of my top 3 buildings in this town. And like I said, the entrance to this place is right around the back, and you'll notice I did try and add quite a bit of stuff back here in this alleyway. I'd even say quite a bit more than the other one, just because we do have this entire campfire area, which I think looks really cool, especially underneath this tree here. And there's also a little barbecue, which someone might cook up all those fish on. So hopefully by adding all this different stuff, it really gives each alleyway a much different look. And maybe, in the end, makes some seem a bit more dangerous than others. Now, just like our barber shop and clothing store, this building is also co-owned by the same person. And obviously the other build is a gun store. And that's the reason for all this. But really quick, we'll also take a look at the general goods store's interior. And just like most of the other builds in this town, it does have a little bedroom area. But I think what's most interesting about this place is that it's got its own crafting station too. And the main reason I put this in is because one thing I really liked about Fallout 3 was how your weapons would get damaged, and more often than not, you would have to take them to some kind of a trader to get them repaired. So I was trying to make it look like that was the case for this town as well. Even though, in terms of Fallout 4, that's not really possible. As for those 2 stores, that is pretty much everything, although we will go ahead and take a look at the outside of the gun store in just a little bit. But for the time being, let's go ahead and check out the diner. And this is another build where the deck is really detailed, and in this case that's mainly in terms of what's been put on the tables, although there are a few other decorations here and there. For the inside, I'd say this is definitely one of our larger standalone stores, just because it does have almost 3 separate rooms. Our smallest one here, the main big one, kind of stretching across the entrance, and then there's also the kitchen in the very back. So really quick, let's go ahead and check that out. And by the way, on our way there, you'll see this is where the hotel is, and also the walkway into the second zone of the town. But like I said, in here is the kitchen over on the left side, and then if we take a look to the right, there's also a very small bedroom. So in terms of my favorite build, I'd have to say it's this one, the hotel. And for this, we actually went through 2 different versions, because to begin with, there was never this area right here in front of us, or the one over there to the left. And with that being the case, the deck was actually a little bit larger last time. But I can easily say that I really do enjoy this new version a whole lot more than the first one. So as for the hotel, prior to the update, all we had was this section, which wasn't too bad, although as you can see, it's only got the 3 different rooms. And as the town got bigger and bigger, to me at least, that just didn't seem like enough. So we've got all 3 of those, and then also a little lounge area in the very back. But as for the expansion, that kind of carries all the way through here, and then this big room in the back is pretty much where the owner would stay. And this is also sort of a 2-in-1 in the sense that it's got the owner's living space, along with an office area and a decent amount of storage space. So I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but I was actually planning on raising the hotel up one more floor, just because I thought the town was going to get a little bit bigger than it did. But I think, and you guys can be the judge of this as well, but for the size we ended up with, I'm pretty sure the one story was easily enough. But moving on, you'll see this is Zone 2 for the town. And in this area we have the jail, the gun store, and also the town hall. Now, one thing I'm not a huge fan of when it comes to this space is how small the entrance is. Because even though this is sort of the second zone in this town, it really is still a very important one, considering it's got the town hall and it also leads all the way down to the docks, which are probably the only unfinished area in this town. But I'm saving that because in the end it's going to have a very different look compared to all this. But really quick, this here is the outside of the gun store. It's got a pretty simple look to it. Nothing too crazy, but I think it gets the job done. And then second up is the Boxtown Jail. Once again, a pretty detailed deck compared to some of the other buildings. And then the interior is also one of my favorites. So for those of you who didn't see the standalone video on this build, I'll kind of fill you in really quick. So it's got the sheriff, who was maybe a former Minuteman, so he runs this area. And then there's also a small detective's office in the very back, along with the cell, since you can't really have a jail without one. Oh, and one thing I almost forgot was this little corner back here. And this is where a beggar would sit and, I guess just over time, collect a few caps if he was lucky enough. So that's why the plate down there has a few of those scattered about. But next up we do have the town hall, and this is also where the mayor's office is. And really quick, it is kind of tough to see, but if you look all the way up there, that would be his office. And then this door is sort of a checkpoint between the main Boxcar town and also the docks. Moving on to the town hall and the final building inside of the Boxcar town. This is actually the biggest one as well. It's got 3 stories. The first one is what you're seeing right now, which is the bank. It's got quite a bit to it, one of our more detailed areas. And then there's also the second floor, which is not only an area for more storage, but it's also somewhat of a barracks for the mayor's guards. And just in case you missed it, there's also the lookout right here. And that building there is Hancock's place. But like I said, the rest of the docks are pretty much empty for the time being. And then to get all the way up to the mayor's office, you do indeed need to take the elevator. So we'll head up. And like I've said plenty of times in the past, he is a little bit on the corrupt side. So that's why his area is quite a bit more luxurious. I mean, the guy's even got his own private bar all the way up on the roof. And then if we keep going even further, we'll see he's got this really cool balcony that overlooks the entire town. Oh, and I also tried to make this seem a little bit like Tempany Tower, just in the sense that he too has his very own sniper rifle up here. It may not be as good as Mr. Tempany's, but it's still something. So I'm sure that you could imagine that if he were to get bored, he could always just sit out here and pretty much just shoot at anything that moves. Granted, it is outside the town walls. And speaking of those, this town doesn't really have any designated walls, and there's a few reasons for that. Number one is mainly because I didn't think they fit all that well with the look I was going for, and also because the boxcars almost form walls of their own, so I thought it would just be best to leave it that way. But yeah, inside here he's got his office, his bedroom, and as for this town, I'd say that's pretty much everything. But yeah, guys, like I said, I think that's just about gonna do it for today's video. Hopefully you did enjoy it, considering it was our first town walkthrough. That being said, feel free to let me know what you thought down in the comments, and also if you have any ideas for future builds, I would love to hear those as well. But anyways, thanks again for watching, guys. Like I said, hopefully you did enjoy it. And as always, I will see you in the next one.